I got 48. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 40.
Completely moved on from their treatment and everything.
Hey guys,
Recording
I
start.
don't know what the sanitary way to do that.
I'm not sure.
I'm
We
okay.
can try and clear off that.
Yeah. And you got access to.
Yep, we're all set up on Zoom. So for all our Zoom listeners that should be able to hear us now, if you're not able to hear us, hopefully you can talk in chat, but if you couldn't hear me, that all makes sense anyway. All right, thank you very much, Alyssa. All right, so quick rundown for all the people in the classroom. Dr. Payne will be figuring out a way to distribute donuts to this a little bit overpacked classroom. We're gonna see what we can do on next time, since we are all
If you
full
would
here.
like some donuts, let's see.
All right, while that's happening, let's get through a little bit of club business before we actually get into the Codebreaker challenge, since we got a couple of things to go through. First of all, for all our new folks, since I think we have a couple of new faces in here, here's the link to our Discord if you would like to scan that and you'll get in. We do all our announcements before all our meetings to tell you about what topic we're going to be going over. We do a lot of announcements for internships, and also we have the Codebreaker sort of help session whenever it's not in an actual meeting. There's channels for each of the tasks that you can go into, and pretty much anybody online can help you through any sort of edge cases or issues you might be having. Yes, person in the back that I've never seen before.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Louder? You want me to talk a little bit louder, is it? Okay.
I want you to yell at us, Houston.
All right, I'll yell at you, Zach. All right, can everybody in the back row hear me fine?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. And I assume everybody on the Zoom has adjusted their audio accordingly now.
I forgot about them. Whoops.
Don't worry about them. I'm sure only minor ear damage. All right, so we have a couple of opportunities. Yes,
Is this meeting being recorded?
it is being recorded right now. We are going through all of this. All right, we have some opportunities that are going to be happening very soon. First of all, we have NCL registration is open. However, don't pay for yourself. We will be paying for your keys. Very shortly, we will send out an email and announcements that will allow you to sign up and get your key. And then we will email that key to you. So you do not need to pay for NCL. If you're unfamiliar with NCL, essentially it is the National Cyber League competition. It is a very good competition if you're a beginner in cyber. It covers a lot of introductory skills. It has a lot of write-ups on challenges before you actually get to the competition in their gym. So if you're completely unfamiliar with CTFs, they will walk you through the CTFs as a sort of like tutorial version, and then put you into the real version as well, where you can compete for a little bit of internet fame as well as some fun challenge points, of course I don't have any on me. They're generally pretty nice. They're about yay big or so, made of metal. They change up the metal every year. They generally have a QR code to the scoreboard in your position. Fun stuff. I believe today, or actually it might be tomorrow, I'm not sure on the exact date, NSA internships will be opening up for 2022 summer. If you're at all interested in getting a TSCI clearance before you actually even leave college and get a fair amount more money for just having it, you might want to submit there. It's intelligencecareers.gov. You can figure your way out from there. You can also just search NSA student programs, and I'm sure the NSA will instantly redirect your browser to it because they're all listening already. Daniel also has something to announce. Also, a quick little bit of roll call for officer staff. If you have not met me before, I am Houston Hall. I am the president of Cyberhawks. Right over here, we have Daniel Cornett, our academics officer. He'll be providing you opportunities relating to either academic pursuits, such as if you want to apply for a paper, or if you want to do any sort of thing regarding conferences, research papers, that sort of thing. He'll be your man to go to, get help on that, or if you want to know what conferences can I submit to, that sort of thing. And Daniel, you also want to talk about some training that's available right now.
Yep, so right now we've got AWS security, so that is Amazon Web Services security. It is a free program, takes about 2 hours to do. It's provided by Amazon. It teaches you about how to properly set up a cloud service with Amazon Web Service with encryptions, industry security standards, a bunch of other stuff. It is a really awesome service that Amazon's giving out for free. It's a really cool little course. Take it. It is do at your own pace kind of thing. So it's a really cool thing. Just take over the weekend. It'll teach you a lot about Amazon Web Service. Even if you haven't ever touched one, it's a really great resource to just quickly learn from. So definitely go check that out.
And then follow that up, start out on the internships real quick. You also got an opportunity for an IT internship.
Yep, so Professor Salini sent us out an email today. If you're not in the databases class, you did not get this. But if you are interested in an IT position, either full-time or just 5 to 10 hours a week, email hughscott@ung.edu. It is for an outside company. They are just looking for an IT talent to hire, Office 365 proficiency, basic hardware troubleshooting, so VoIP application troubleshooting. And if you do go full-time, they will on-the-job training for base SQL, databases, administrative work, sysadmin. So that is a really awesome opportunity. Like it says, it is a small office in Johns Creek. That's about what 30, 40 minutes from here. So it's a really awesome opportunity. Definitely email. It's hugh.scott@ung.edu. So that's an opportunity right there. Take advantage of it. They're looking for an IT person.
All right, thank you very much, Daniel. And now we're going to be getting back to our scheduled programming almost. Dr. Payne, whenever you have a moment. Would you like to?
I think everybody got a donut that wanted one in the first pass, but there's still about a dozen left back there.
All right.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of quick things. It's all right. First of all, let's hear it for our Cyberhawks leadership team. And it is an honor to be back. I'm Dr. Payne. I'm the faculty advisor for the club. I'm one of a handful of coaches. We've got Coach Jacob Elliott, who may be on with us today. But we also have several faculty members. So I want to introduce Mr. Chris Adams. So you guys may know Professor Adams. He's taught our networking security or network class, a few other classes along the way too. And we're grateful for our IT team. And for Professor Rusk. Dr. Rusk has been teaching for us for a number of years, but is back in a position in cybersecurity. So we're grateful to have both of them with us today. And I want to say thanks to any faculty who may be on the line. Thank you guys as well for supporting this. As you know, this is our Codebreaker kickoff season, so we are really excited to have another record team, we're hoping, in the Codebreaker. The last 3 years, we placed third place, first place, and first place. So third place in 2018 behind Georgia Tech and Oregon State. Last year, number one, ahead of 400 something other schools. The previous year, there were 532 schools in the Codebreaker, and UNG was number one as well. So we do have a couple of really nice coins that we do for everybody who completes at least one task. So task 1 or higher. The task 0 this year is a 1-pointer, so I think everybody can handle signing up for Discord.
I hope so.
Right? They put a low bar in there to get you going. But like Houston's going to show you today, you can knock out task 1, maybe task 3 the next, and then come back to task 2. It's been a really nice, easy way to do it. But every task that you knock out not only teaches you something new or uses skills that you picked up in your security courses, it is also a little extra buffer between us and the second place, third place teams. Right now, we are in 5th or 6th place.
Unfortunately, I believe we're in 6th. However, it's only about 500 points, and 5th place is Georgia Tech. So I think possibly during this meeting or after it, we might be reclaiming that position.
There's a good chance that with 49 people here this morning, plus a good number of people online, we might be able to overtake Georgia Tech like real time by 1 o'clock, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
That would be
Oh, you just did? All right. So well done.
That sounds like fun.
I'll tell you the number one reason. Well, there are a couple of good reasons. All right, I'll give 3. First of all, we got some really good leadership across the Cyberhawks team, across our mentors, across our faculty. We're really grateful to have a lot of people invested in this. The NSA sees this as really important because, in their words, in the words of the director of NSA, if you can solve all the way to the end of the Codebreaker, you are, quote, work ready for NSA. That's a pretty high praise to come from the director of the NSA. And each year we've had about 30 students make it all the way to the end. 160 to 180 students solve through that first task. And then around 30 make it to the very end, which is really impressive. I'd love to have even more of you get one of those really fancy medallions from NSA this year. And NSA has been very gracious. They've hosted a recognition ceremony each of the past 2 years for coming out on top. Second reason is because of the teamwork. The Discord channel will be buzzing at every hour of the morning and night. You can always check in and get some help. So House is going to get you hooked up there. And then number 3, our students just work harder and longer on the Codebreaker than the other schools. It's no magic. Georgia Tech has some pretty smart people. They do. I went there for part of my undergraduate degree. But we stick with it when the other schools start to drop off. And we go further than most of the other schools. Well, the last 2 years, we went further than
We annihilated.
anybody. We beat them by a margin of 4-1. But this year we got UCF, who is one of the top programming team schools in the country. They almost always win the ICPC competition, the International Collegiate Programming Competition in the US. And they usually place in the top 15 in the world competition. So they have been topping the leaderboard since right at the very beginning. So they're going to give us a little competition, but with the numbers and with the teamwork and just the plain dedication and persistence, we got a really good shot at making this our 3rd #1 year. So thank you all for being here today. We're going to do lots more during the semester, but I'm not going to take any more time away from Preston, so we can get this going. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Brian. All right. Let's get this rolling. First of all, there will unfortunately be bad jokes in this presentation slide. I'm very sorry. If you've seen these presentation slides before, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
We'll be going through tasks 1, 3, and 2 in that order, which you will see later. A very interesting exploit that we found in the challenge system itself. Let's get started with 1, huh? So start with, we have a very simple challenge to begin the competition. We have a list of IPs in CIDR notation, which I'll cover in just a second. And we have a PCAP file. Quick show of hands. How many people in this room have used Wireshark before? All right, very good. We'll still be going over it a little bit, but not too much, just to brief people who have not. Also, if you're not familiar with Wireshark and you're wondering what CIDR notation, Wireshark, PCAP files, IP address ranges and all that stuff are, you can also take data networks and forensics later in your college career, because that's what actually covers this stuff. But we will be trying to explain it very quickly on the things that you need to know. Also, this challenge has a fun, say more advanced optional challenge for those who think that this is probably going to be far too easy for them. I invite you all to write a 1-liner bash script to solve this entire challenge that will be printed out all IPs in order that you can copy and paste and submit. I know Dr. Payne has already done one. Our coach Jacob Elliott has done another. I will be posting a 3rd. And if you can also do one, well done. You will get internet points or perhaps Cyberhawks fame. All right, quick overview of Wireshark. Essentially, for this challenge, we have captured what's going on the network for a period of time when we have suspected that there has been an intrusion. And we have found out that this listening point that's being run by malicious terrorist actors, etc., has been communicating with essentially defense contractors. We've been given all the network capture between defense contractors in the listening point. We've already filtered it down to just communications to the listening point. And we now want to know which specific defense contractors are actually being hit by this. So in their actual 2 files, we get the PCAP, and we also get this list of all these CIDR IP address ranges. So essentially, instead of having to type out the maybe, I don't know, I think it's probably about, about like the 40,000 IPs that those ranges actually span.
Oh.
Instead, we're given CIDR notation, which essentially means IP address, and then there's a slash, and then 2 numbers that represent essentially what portion of that IP will actually vary. Generally, it's about like the last 4 bytes, or rather the last octet. And we are going to do a little bit of regex magic, or you can do this manually if you're not comfortable with regex, to make a Wireshark filter to literally just have Wireshark tell us what we need to submit. Very simple. Also, if you're unfamiliar with everything I've said so far, Wireshark.org will allow you to download it. You can also just get Wireshark in either Parrot or Kali, which I'm sure everybody in this room has heard of. I'm getting a fair amount of nods for that one. And if you're unfamiliar with all that still, back in September 2nd, 2020, there was a Cyberhawks meeting that is recorded on the Discord that goes over VM installation, a couple of tools and that sort of thing. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of a presentation to just go over what's going on here. So that's a little bit easier. So let's see here. Can everybody see Wireshark? Yes, we can. All right. So I open up the capture PCAP here. We can see we have a bunch of different things here. We have all these communications. The listening point address here will be that destination columns 172.25.15.162 for me. So that is the listening point. That is what we're trying to figure out, what IPs within the defense contractor database connect to that one. So there's a fair bit of traffic in this file that you would not want to sift through manually. You could, it would be very painful. Instead, what we'll be doing is I have this other file here, which is the other file they give you, has a list of all those IPs and site address notation. And what I'll be doing here is just two quick things. I'm going to be saying IP.source equals the first one. And then I'm going to be applying this fancy little regex I wrote. You can copy and paste this. If people want, I'll put it in the Discord too. That essentially is going to take every new line and replace it with an if the IP equals that range, or this range, or this range, or that range, or you get the idea. If it's any of those ranges, at the top of Wireshark, we have this apply display filter here that we're going to filter all our results through. We're just going to pop that in, hit enter, and we filtered everything down. Easy as that. If I can get Zoom to not get in the way for a second, we can now make this very simple. So we can still sift through these, find all the unique IP addresses, and input that. That's a fair enough solution. But Wireshark made it easier for us. We can go into conversations there under statistics. Switch over to the IP addresses that have been involved in this. And then there's a little box at the bottom that says limit to display filter. Like that, you can see I have my 4 answers here. So to actually solve this challenge, all I did was enter 10.26.137.1.5, new line 10.54.171.234, new line, et cetera, et cetera. And that is challenge 1 done already. Simple as that.
Houston, if I can jump in just for a second.
Sure thing.
Again, forgot, I think Houston may have mentioned this, but the first 6 challenges are all team-based challenges. So you can share, help with one another. If somebody wasn't here today, you can go in Discord, they can ask the question, hey, how do you do that filter thing that Houston did? It looked like magic. He just waved his hand and everything turned into exactly what you needed. You can help each other out. In fact, Houston and the team will be on answering questions as well. The great thing about the team challenges is that every single one of you has a different set of addresses. Every single one of you has a different listening post, that LP address, that destination. So even though you can help each other out and figure out how to do some really cool tricks like this, you still have a unique set of addresses that you submit that'll be different from the person you're working with. So that's the really smart thing NSA does, is gives us team challenges that everybody can do and everybody has to do, because your answers will be different from what you see from Houston. Some of you may have 5 or 6 addresses. Some may have just 3 or 4. But they're all going to look different. And that's the great thing about this. You can work along with somebody else. You can team up, go to the library, use one of the study rooms and step through this, work through it together. But your answers are going to look completely different from your neighbor. So that's some really fun stuff that you get to do through all of these challenges. Thanks.
Absolutely. And also, just to go over real quick, since Dr. King pointed out, you don't have to do that magical little hand wave I did to format this file. You can do it manually. So essentially all that fancy or IP equals source and regex and everything, all that's really doing is essentially I want to take every line and just say or IP equals source. Do that. new line, or IP. That source equals. Yeah. Let's see.
There you go. Is that good all the way to the back?
There we go.
All right.
That a little bit more readable, and everybody understand what I'm actually here doing. I'm essentially just adding every new line to be a single line, or IP dot source equals that IP, and we just keep on going forever. And also, again, I will post this little regex I wrote, very simple stuff that you can copy and paste into your favorite code editor or text editor, and it'll auto format the file for you, just like that. All right. That all good for everybody? We got any questions on task 1 so far? All right. We have any questions online? Sounds good. Let's do a little bit of time traveling. So we're gonna skip ahead to task 3 because we can do a little bit of creative solutions here, I'd say. So, as it turns out, task 3 works under the assumption that we've already gathered the information from task 2 to gather the information that task 3 gives us. Confusing, I know. So, what we're going to do here is solve task 3, and some information is slipped out essentially that allows us to very easily solve task 2, far more easily than it would be normally. So, first of all, in task 3, all we're given is the zip file that has .email files in it, which are just emails that have been stored down to a file. You can open those up in a text editor, or I think on most Windows computers, it will automatically try and force you to open it in Office 2016 or something like that. If you installed the Office suite for Word and all that, I think it probably does force you to try and open it like that. That's all fine. You can open that up and you can browse through your emails. So if you just basically just keep on looking through all these emails, you'll see a bunch of non-consequential stuff, people talking about meetings. I know, very boring stuff, sending out announcements to meetings. And eventually you'll find something that probably looks like this. Obviously, all the challenge solutions are going to be a little bit randomized, but you're probably going to see something a little bit like what you have here with this email that I had of pictures of Sam. And we can see we have that first image looks fine, second image looks fine. Sam3.jpg is about 200th of the size of those other files, at least, maybe 600th of those sizes. And also it doesn't actually seem to be a JPEG at all. Instead, what we get out is, if you open up that JPEG in a text editor instead, or just drop it into something to actually edit the file, we get this strange little bit of code here that's trying to run PowerShell on a base64 encoded string. So I'm not entirely sure how there was actually an exploit here. That's a little bit of a mystery that somehow this defense contractor really wanted sam3.jpg. So they opened it up, realized that was not a JPEG, and then ran the script. Good for them, I suppose. I guess they don't have any training over there. All right, so we get this script here. If you base64 decode, which you can find many tools online just by a quick Google search, or if you're familiar with CyberChef, that's a great tool, a great multi-tool to solve basically all these issues. And if you base64 decode that, you get something that looks a little bit like this source code I have on the left here. So you can see it's creating essentially an object to then download from this address, the EIJ or EIGFK.invalid, and it's looking for the analysis file. And that ending extension there, or the file we're actually getting, is going to be randomized for all of you. You're going to see something very similar. And then once it gets that file, it's going to essentially decrypt it for our purposes. It's doing an XOR cipher with a little bit of fancy stuff on it, but we don't actually need to understand it beyond the fact that we already have the code to decrypt it. So let's just run their code. And you'll run into a little bit of an issue there, since the website .invalid is in fact an invalid website, inconveniently. So instead, you might have realized if you're working through this on task 3, that we in fact already have this analysis file. We just don't know it exactly. We back up a little bit to that packet capture that we got from task 1. Well, that is the infected communication that we've been looking into to begin with. So we can go back into that and go into File, Export Objects, and then HTTP, since we were sending out an HTTP request to download that file from a website there. And Wireshark makes it very simple for you. They'll just have a little pop-up window like this thing on the right here. It says, which file would you like to download? And you say, well, I'd like the analysis file. And it's like, okay, where do you want it saved? Save it down, and now you have extracted that file from the packet capture, and you can rerun this decryption script essentially. So let's create our own little decryption script and essentially do everything except rerun this malware, since you don't actually want to run this. So instead of downloading the data, we have it there. So we're going to set our bytes to be this, read all bytes, and then we're going to provide our path. I will also post this code in the Discord as well, so you won't have to stare at my PowerPoint presentations for 20 years handwriting this code again. There's also a script written by our coach Jacob that is in Python that will do pretty much the same thing. You just have to edit a few things in case you have moral objections to the use of PowerShell, which unfortunately all this is written in. I do have some moral objections, however, I figured I'd have it here since that's more compatible for everyone. If you're not familiar with PowerShell, since I think it only gets covered in script programming.
Yeah.
That's the only class in this entire college that actually covers it. You should have PowerShell installed by default on all your Windows systems. If you just type in PowerShell to your start menu, you can spawn a shell, and you can literally just execute this code straight in the terminal. So we're going to read that file. We're going to literally reuse the exact same decryption script that malware was using. And then we're just going to write it out to a file. I just labeled malware there. If everything went well, then you should have a new PowerShell script. And if you just scroll through, at the very bottom, you'll have this code here for an invoke web request and a URL of .invalid, of course. So that's actually all we're looking for task 3. That's the solution we're after, is we just have to submit only that little part there that I've bolded and underlined. That's the solution. You just have to get that malware file, scroll down to the bottom, and submit that URL. And you're good to go on that. So
I'll just add in there, your URL will be different from
Yes.
Hobson's.
you cannot
And
just,
your decryption key, your XOR byte value will probably be different, only there are just 255 different values, so 2 of you could have the same one there.
but you'll want to just basically copy and paste your decryption from your own malware there, just so you have no issues. But yes, that little 78 number is essentially the unique part of all this. You're going to have a different number for 78. You're going to have a different number for this URL. It's going to be the answer. And you're going to have a different thing up here, of course. But if you're following the steps along, it'll be all good. So we saw task 1, task 3. I guess we have to go back to task 2 now. So task 2 was essentially the step between, we know a specific defense contractor has been infected. We want to find out who it was. So we actually know who it was, in fact. We know, in my case, it was a Tom Glynn that had that email sent to them. If I go back a second. Yeah, right here, to tomglynn.julio. He was essentially the person that really wanted those photos, so he executed the script. So because of that, the fact that we already know it's Tom Glynn, we can do a little bit of a deduction on who it might be in task 2. So because of that, we can just download a single file from task 2, logins.json, and just search through the file for tomglynn.julio. And for me, it was literally the first result was a login request from tomglynn.julio. And like right after that, there was login ID, OX3BFA33. That's another thing that's going to be randomized in addition to the name there. And that was it. that was the solution for task 2. We're done already. Just kidding. So, with that resolved, there is one issue in that it might not be your first result. There are only about, I think I only had about 3 to 4 sessions created by Tomlin. So you could just brute force it. And honestly, it probably is always going to be the first result. However, let's say you actually wanted to play things a little bit fair, or maybe you have to do a write-up for your class or something like that. So let's actually solve task 2, sort of. So if we open up the proxy.log file that you're given, it's another one of those files that you can download from the Codebreaker site that's provided for task 2. And we just do a quick search for the IP that they also give you in another file. So in my case, it was 172.23.215.106. That's also the same IP as in the packet capture from task 1 again. So any of those. We get that IP. We have one result from proxy.log for this invalid address. And the important thing here is we have a time. It was at 0800 hours. You might then find an issue, however, the fact that there are probably no sessions created at 0800 hours. So don't be like me and spend like 15 minutes wondering why there are no sessions open at the time. At the top of proxy.log, there is a time zone that the log is in. I think it has been always -4. So just make sure to check that one. It's at the top of proxy.log, and it'll tell you what time you actually have to convert it to. And I can show real quick after this where you're actually looking for the timestamp in the logins.json if you want to do this legitimately. But other than that, we're pretty much done here. We solved 1, 2, 3. Simple as that. Sure.
For task 2.
Yep.
I got 1 and 3 done, and it's working and hearing me bang my head against the wall for task 2 for like. So.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Yesterday, I was CMing and trying to talk it through with somebody, because I knew I was banging my head. One thing, I was very stuck on the main on my malicious email.
Mhm.
Like the from that wasn't all don't like to the 2 people, don't be like me and get stuck on that. That may be helpful information, that may not be. Don't do that because it does limit your like options. But yeah, what the advice I got was if there seem to be like emails from like or something from like a certain person and a lot, that may be a better task to look at than that if you're stuck on a wall like me. Because mine was unfortunately not that simple. Mine was I banged my head on the wall and then I like sat through it a little bit slower and more deliberately, looked at the IP, and I just I found that when I was looking through the emails and trying to see who was sending the most, honestly, and then I found one that had a really weird to and from format, and that's how I found it. So
Okay.
it may be a little
Interesting.
just FYI. But yeah,
Yeah.
don't get stubborn and bang your head on a wall because you refuse to consider that it's not the same person or with the malicious script.
Interesting. I have not encountered that yet. Yeah. In general, if you're, for instance, if something is not as easy as it being sam3.jpg in my case, just look through all of the emails and check out all the attachments. One of them will absolutely be, you open up in a text editor, just a script. It will literally just be a script that has all the same stuff that I had in that JPEG file. Essentially, they're just changing the file extension on you from a TXT to something else. So you can either take a look at the actual file size of it and see that something is suspiciously small, or just download all the attachments. I think there's only about 6 to 7 attachments in total throughout all the emails. So you can just look through all of them real quick. And let's see, one final thing before we go over to open discussion. I was going to go into logs.json and show everybody how to actually find the session if you're doing it legitimately. See here, I'll be bringing this up in 1 second. And share my screen again. There we go. Okay, so logins.json starts out as this awful unreadable mess that none of you should actually try and read through manually. How many people here have ever used an IDE probably for CSI 1301. Fair amount of hands, okay. Have any of you ever heard of VS Code or its open source variation VS Codium? Couple of hands. So there are also a couple of different IDEs that can do this for you. But if you have your code editor here, in my case, there's only a format document option. There are also online web pages that will format JSON for you to make it pretty printed or readable. And once you run that real quick, we get this much nicer format of it, where every line is a data entry instead. So in this case, for solving it the cheating way, I can literally just type in Tomlin. And then if I just keep on searching until I get, actually, well, I need to go up. Actually, no, never mind, no, right here, Tomlin, and then login ID. All those previous ones were unrelated logs, but we finally get down to this type of essentially log that has a login type, a login ID right up that target. And here is the solution right there. However, if you would like to not cheat and not find out who you're looking for before you can do task 2, at the bottom here, we have time created. So your goal is to essentially write your own script that will assess when these sessions were created and when they're ended. There's some log off attempts that if I scroll on, you can see there is the log off for log on ID 3BFA68. So essentially, we need to find a session that was open during the period of, in my case, it was 0800 hours, but -4, so it's about noon or so. Find a session open during noon, find out who is that person, and then submit that login ID there. I think that's about all we have. So, do we have any questions about any of the tasks?
For task 1, you said the command, the one-liner, did you say batch or bash?
Bash.
Bash.
Bash script. You can also do it. You could probably do it in PowerShell if you really wanted to. I would just recommend using bash if you want to do that fun one-liner and post to Discord. And if you just want to solve the challenge, then I recommend just doing the manual way of format that filter from before. Let me see, I can go into the slides real quick. Go way back up. Format that. It's still in VS Codium. Right over here. Format that file so it's that one extremely long filter statement. And then just go Wireshark, back into statistics, and you can get your 4 IP results there. And that's all you need to actually solve task 4, or task 1 even, sorry.
Is it the same number for everybody?
For the amount of IPs?
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure that will vary.
Okay.
But literally just enter all of the IPs that show up here.
The source, this, the source one, right?
Correct.
Not destination.
Yes, all of the sources here. You'll notice that the destination is always the same because we're getting all of the IPs that communicated with the listening host server. Timestamp for which side? You want the timestamp of at the top of the file. Let's see here. So we're looking for proxy.log.
Oh.
I guess we can like that. And we can see at the top, we have UTC minus 400 hours. And then in each of the logs here, we see the actual
Because the thing is, what I'm talking about
600 hours,
looks like.
oh, 600 hours.
I think maybe
And essentially, if you convert the time there, that's 400 hours, convert that to its UTC, essentially just
These times, all of them aren't in UTC, are they? All the times aren't already in UTC.
no. So what you actually, well, you can do it either way. You can convert either the logins.json into my 400 hours, or do it the other way around. Essentially, the issue there is that proxies.log and logins.json don't have the same time quiz.
I didn't read what was that. Literally Monday night.
No.
So.
Yeah.
But what he talked about.
Actually, I'll talk about what you want.
Getting.
Hey gang, there's one other really important piece that I do need to ask. At the end of this semester, we will purchase coins for everybody who solves at least through task 1. I know you can go through at least task 3 though, right?
Yeah.
You can at least rewatch this on the Discord channel 1 or 2 times and you'll be able to figure out your task 3. It'll look a little different, but I think everybody can get through at least that, and then we'll go through all the way up through task 6 together over a few more meetings. Next week, before I forget, we have the Marine Forces Cyber Civilian Internship Coordinator coming next week. Actually, she's not coming because I don't think anybody in DoD is allowed to travel to the state of Georgia because of our COVID numbers. She is actually going to tune in remotely over Zoom, but we're going to connect in with Anna Hicks from Marine Forces Cyber. Even if you're planning to go Army, or if you don't plan to go into DoD at all, this is a top secret secure compartmentalized information, or TSSCI clearance internship opportunity paid with the US government next summer, working with Marine Forces Cyber. Those of you who've been through an NSA top secret clearance, it's not full lifetime scope, so it's a little bit lighter, just looks back at your last 5 to 10 years. But come next week to learn more, or tune in by Zoom. You've got the Discord link and we'll send it out ahead of the meeting again, so that you can listen in for Anna Hicks. She's going to share how you can apply for an internship right now for next summer, go through the top secret clearance process. You keep that clearance for another 5 years after you do the internship. That makes you very valuable to everybody from Coca-Cola, Home Depot, to Raytheon, to Leidos, to Trend Micro, you name the company, IBM. They all want people with clearances. So it's a really nice thing. And if you want to go into government service at any level, having that Marine Forces civilian cyber internship on your resume can look really great. But Houston is going to demo for you really fast. After you log into the Codebreaker, you go up to your email address in the upper right corner, where he is clicking right there, and come down to sharing. This is all about sharing. You want to share your progress with Bryson.Payne, BRYSON.PAYNE, yep, that's me, at UNG.edu. That does a couple of things for you. First of all, I do a certificate. Actually, Ms. Brunner prints the certificates for us. But we give a certificate that has the seals of the NSA and Department of Homeland Security, which is a really nice thing for you to have for participating in the Codebreaker. And we'll have a ceremony toward the end of the semester or early in the spring semester, depending on how the Codebreaker is looking toward the end, where we'll recognize everybody who's been a part of our, hopefully, #1 in the country for a 3rd year in a row, UNG Cyberhawks team. But #2, we will get you one of those really cool medallions, the UNG medallion, the UNG coin. It's a 2-inch, nice, heavy challenge coin. Those of you in the military, you'll collect a lot of challenge coins over your career, but to have one with the seal of the NSA on one side and with UNG's 3rd year in a row at #1 on the other side, it's going to be a really special one. So we will order those. They usually do take, we have to wait until we actually win it or land wherever we land. So it probably will not be here before the end of this semester, but we'll even mail it to you if you're graduating in December. You just reach out to me or to Houston or to one of the team or to Ms. Brunner. We will send it to you by mail. We did over 100 of those coins last year and nobody was around because of COVID. So we mailed a lot. But we really just want to celebrate with you, appreciate the hard work that you put in. These first 3 challenges sort of tee it up to look like it's almost easy. It gets harder, but you got a whole team working with you here all the way through task 6. And if you're really interested in a job at NSA or in cybersecurity, working on tasks 7, 8, 9, and 10 by yourself is going to be a labor of love. It'll take some time. But if you'll share with Bryson Payne, tell it you're not a robot and click update, then I'll have your results so I can see that you solved at least task 1, 2, and maybe 3 after today's session, or all the way through 6, or all the way through 9, or all the way through 10. And we will make sure that we recognize you. If you make it all the way through task, I think we're gonna do 9 this year.
Yeah.
I think at task 9, we're gonna give you one of the nice acrylic trophies for being one of our top solvers. At level 10, you get the big medallion from NSA, the 3-inch coin that looks really cool. So we'll take care of you at level 9. Does that sound good? A little motivation? All right, anything else now before they head out? Oh, sure.
I just want to warn anybody who wants to go for that internship. Go for that. Be prepared. And know what you're getting into, because they are gonna dig up everything about you and your past that you don't even know is in your past. I'm telling you, it's the real deal.
Yeah, we definitely respect anybody who's going through that secret clearance or higher process. Top secret is the stuff. We'll see you guys next week. We'll be in Zoom and back in here. Thanks.